Hey there, welcome to the Reinsurance Podcast, the place where we dive into all things reinsurance, the coolest part of insurance. We're your hosts, Jerad and Ben, a couple of ex-practitioners who loved the industry so much we founded Supercede to tackle some of its biggest headaches. And we're here to share our insights and stories with expert guests as we uncover what's really going on in the industry.
Welcome back, everybody, to a special news roundup episode. We are in, or just coming to the end of, the month of October. And of course, I'm with our beloved co-host, Jerad. How are you, Jerad?
Very, very good. We're doing this on location in Budapest for the Supercede offsite. So it's a bit of a fun one, us to be out of the studio, but also still recording this virtually for attempted audio purposes. But we didn't take advantage of this being the end of October to do anything Halloween related. But that's fine because there's a ton going on right now in the news. And so we're just going to run through the headlines and give everyone what they demand, the insight into the reinsurance market at the end of the month. So we'll kick off. The big one that sort of jumps out to me here is sort of the updates from Dean Klesura and GC around what's happening post Milton, a bit of flattening around the property cat pricing going into the 1/1 renewals. Probably something that was talked about quite a lot at Baden when you were there, but looking at the impact of a late season storm like this so close now to a renewal season.
Yeah, I think it's quite interesting. It's been a dominant topic naturally, how Milton will affect rates, because I think we'd been anticipating prior to Milton and prior to Helene, however you want to say it, that there would be a sort of more of a flattening, maybe even a softening. But following those hurricanes coming through, it was like, oh, this could go completely the other way. If you haven't listened to it, Jerad and I did a immediately prior to landfall episode, specifically on Milton, that really goes into what could have happened, and it would have been industry changing if it had hit in a slightly different place on the coast. Obviously, it didn't hit in the worst possible way, and we're now seeing a lot of results come through to say it's going to be less painful than expected. But interestingly, we say that quite a range of the estimates still coming out, aren't there?
Yeah. Well, some of the ranges, as you always get, the ranges are quite large. So what you're seeing from most of the major risk modelers is like a 17 to 50 billion sort of number. But PCS came out with something far below that, didn't they?
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of numbers still at this point. Again, whilst I think the modelers make best efforts to give a post-event number, after the event, their real value is typically to give you a modelled estimate long before any hurricanes have happened of how many hurricanes are going to be that year and how severe they'll be, etc. So I judge them not on their post-event estimates, although they may be possibly useful as long as you've got that range.
Well, yeah, and when you look at events of this magnitude and sort of in such close succession to the earlier events of the year, like the actual end numbers won't be realized for a few years now, right? With the amount of time it'll take to rebuild these cities and the sort of costs associated with that will continue to trickle in. So these will be numbers that'll be adjusting for a long time. So we spend a lot of time talking about the immediate like estimate numbers that happen right in the sort of weeks following, but in reality, these numbers will be firming up for years now, as we all know. But the sort of Milton being a big topic, but not the only sort of theme of Baden-Baden.
No, that's right. I think you have this on one side, the US as a big topic area naturally because of Milton, but actually Europe had, this being a very European conference in Baden-Baden, Europe and sort of the wider rest of the world had their fair share of goings on the natural disaster front, on the civil unrest front as well. And I think those were front of mind for a lot of buyers coming to the conference. To be honest with you, I got the sort of overarching impression talking with buyers and brokers and underwriters that after the disruption of the very messy late renewals that we had a couple of years earlier, everybody really just wanted these conversations, these meetings to go smoothly. And so it felt like there was a bit of give and take between the buyers and the underwriters in the sense that if you don't mess with our terms and conditions, which we worked really hard to put in place and the layers that we got in place back then, we won't mess too much with your rates either. That was sort of the trade-off I felt was happening in a lot of cases, managed by the brokers as well, to make sure that everybody ended up in a position they were comfortable with given the uncertainty of big events like Milton. So yeah, Europe definitely a big theme. But actually, the other one that came out quite big was cyber. Delighted to have had Jen Brainey come on the show from Gallagher Re to talk about the first cyber event at Baden-Baden ever. They had, I think, more than 100 guests going specifically to Baden-Baden for the cyber element of it. So a real sign that that class is coming to the fore.
Yeah, well, and it's, it relates to this other news story that we have here from QBE talking about the expectation that cyber events and attacks will more than double this year. So like you're seeing this acceleration on that. We've talked a bit before, but a bit of that being sort of driven by fears around AI and how it's being used to manipulate different things and convince, aid cyber criminals in their ability to execute their plans. So being taken seriously. And I think you're seeing a market response to that more broadly as well. But in the theme of like large sort of shifts in risk climates, this is an interesting one that's come out from Lloyd's, which is talking about this $14.5 trillion economic risk from various hypothetical geopolitical conflicts. And we're sort of seeing a bit of that on the rise, and Lloyd's is beginning to lean into what they might think these events could cost should they come into fruition. What are your thoughts on sort of this space more broadly and its ability to be covered by the traditional insurance and reinsurance market?
Yeah, I think it's all part of a theme really at the moment where we're looking at the world through perhaps less rosy glasses after a period of what felt like relative calm. In the decade prior, we've obviously got a lot of geopolitical instability at the moment. We've got multiple wars on multiple fronts going on, and the potential for others to at some point start. So the geopolitical front is fraught. We've got elections happening that also are causing fears of strikes, riot, and civil commotion and so on that could also have a big impact. So to see Lloyd's shining a light on this and doing a dedicated report on the geopolitical factor in particular doesn't surprise me at all. And the fact that the numbers are big doesn't surprise me either. I think this is going to remain a key theme for quite some time to come.
Yeah. Well, and it brings us very nicely into sort of the final story I wanted to touch on in this episode. But when you think about the challenges that the reinsurance industry has, and sometimes the challenge within that, are we maintaining relevance? This article here from Swiss Re that's talking about this rise in uncertainty that you've talked about, not only from a geopolitical lens, but we've looked at from catastrophes and cyber risk and similar, is driving this massive increase for this reinsurance in Europe specifically from this article, but more broadly, right? There's this real awareness that the industry, the insurance industry, has a reliance. They're reaching out to the reinsurance market saying, like, how can we collaborate? How can we, work together to help protect the sort of the broader world against these different sort of scenarios and these different risks?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's been a recurring theme both in Monte Carlo and in Baden-Baden. Obviously not just this year as well, but perhaps ever more so, of remaining relevant as an industry and what that involves. Climate change being a massive factor as we look at, 2 hurricanes hitting Florida, an area where I think we increasingly recognize a lot of very valuable property probably should never have been built, given its exposure to high frequency and ever higher frequency events that affect that neighborhood. But then also in recognition of a lot of other factors that are out there that we maybe haven't modeled to the extent that we might need to in an ever-growing age of risk. The other thing I'd add, interestingly, that has come up quite a lot in these conversations is in order to serve its customers, the reinsurance industry has put out a bit of a call for better transparency and better partnership. Laurent Rousseau sort of kicked off the proceedings with the GC Symposium at Baden with a message of partnership being an ongoing choice that people have to make, not just a sort of foregone conclusion that people will work together, and to support that partnership, you need transparency. So there was a real calling for better data quality to permeate the market to enable reinsurers to step in and help and support all of these many, many perils facing the insurers and their own clients in turn. So hopefully we'll see a bit of a move towards partnership powered by data.
Yeah, well, and it ties nicely to that first point you brought up in those conversations at Baden around this real sort of sense of people leaning into collaboration, not only in terms of in terms of terms and in terms of how you want to structure and agree the risk, but also in the, all right, we're going to be more willing to be transparent, more collaborative in the data element of what this looks like as well, because by doing that together with like in a position of good intent, an expectation of good intent that we'll get through some of these things and be able to solve, these big hairy challenges that we're sort of designed for and built for, and we like to lean into. So it's an exciting part, and it's good to see that being the theme and the tone in the last couple months of this year as we sort of prepare for imminent now 1/1s, FOTs being sort of centered on the market and stuff now. So exciting updates that we'll give you more information on as we learn it coming into November and end of the year news roundups. But that's everything for the month of October.
But
except for one thing.
No, but don't worry, because one, we haven't run out of content for October, because we've done a whole series of Baden-Baden podcasts which start with me doing an intro in German. If you really want to hear how entertaining that is, then please do give it a listen. But actually the episodes after my intro are brilliant. Some incredible speakers, definitely worth a listen. And also, as we move into November, please do keep an eye out for Jerad and Tom, who are heading out to Singapore for the final major conference of the year. I'd say the Singapore SIRC event. So just next week now, right?
Just next week. Yeah, we're back-to-back trips for us right now. So it's a good time of the year. But yeah, please do reach out if you're going to be in Singapore. You want to grab a coffee or catch up. Diary's quite full, but we can always squeeze people in. So look forward to seeing you all there.
Thanks, everyone, and see you in November.
See you then.
Thanks for tuning in to the Reinsurance Podcast. If you enjoyed our show, don't forget to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and leave us a review to let us know how we're doing, preferably 5 stars. For more insights and updates, follow us on LinkedIn and visit our website at supercede.com/podcasts. You'll find the links in the show notes.